If everyone else in your industry is spending, say, 10% of their revenue on marketing, but your business is spending 30% of your revenue on marketing, then I'm going to say that maybe we have some sort of marketing efficiency problem, and we need to dig in, look at the activities going on within that marketing function, and then try to figure out what might need to be fixed.
Today's show is so good.
But number one, I've never seen an intro like that.
It is my hope and desire that not only will episode 30 still be fun, but episode 300 will be even more fun. You were made for something great, so go and be awesome.
Ten seconds remaining.
Hello, and welcome to the show. My name is Renee Hastings, and I'm your host of Renee Speaks. Y'all, today's show is going to be so fantastic, and that is because of our incredible guest. His name is Nate Littlewood, and he is the founder of Future Ready CFO, where he helps purpose-led e-commerce and CPG founders gain clarity on their numbers and make smarter financial decisions. He's built his own e-commerce business, mentored startups, and spent nearly a decade on Wall Street, bringing both real-world and corporate experience. Through coaching, courses, and content, Nate is on a mission to make finance more accessible and help founders avoid the mistakes that cause startups to fail. Y'all, put your hands together for Nate Littlewood.
Wow, what an intro. Thank you, Renee. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Nate. I'm so excited to have you on the show.
Of course. Well, it's great to be here and excited to be chatting all things finance with you.
Yes. And you know what? As founder of my own business and as our audience is founders of their businesses as well, we all know how important the finances are. If you have no finances, you basically have no business.
That is true. Very true.
But Nate, have you always felt this way about numbers? Have you always been a numbers person? And, how did you get started in this field?
Yeah, I would say I have always been pretty good at numbers. Early on, I was actually spent the first few years of my career working as an engineer, but I got into this and I've been working as a fractional CFO now for, I guess, about 2 years. Immediately prior to this, I spent a couple of years with a New York City-based accelerator program called Food Future Co. And we basically specialized in helping get early stage founders in the food, beverage, and ag tech space ready for their first round of institutional investment. For about 6 or 7 years before that, I was running my own e-commerce business, as you mentioned, which we bootstrapped from a small Kickstarter campaign into a 7-figure company. And for about a decade or so before that, I worked on Wall Street at an investment bank. So I guess you could say what I'm doing now is taking that, 10 years or so worth of Wall Street finance experience, combining it with about a decade worth of experience in and around the e-commerce industry, and now offering my support and services to help other founders with their finances and numbers.
Wow. Well, let me tell you, we are very grateful for people like you who love the numbers and can basically look at a spreadsheet and not feel inundated or overwhelmed or daunted by all of the things that you see.
Yeah.
But can literally basically take that information, analyze it, and pretty much, I'm guessing, with all the experience that you have, at a glance, be able to see where there could be gaps, where things need to be a little different, different ratios of one thing to another, not matching, or things like that. So tell me, Nate, what strategy, or how do you believe that, or why do you believe that financial data is the most powerful tool for decision making?
Well, the thing with finance and business is that finances and financial statements are really your scorecard, if you will. Okay. So
Mhm.
any business is really about providing a solution to someone's problem, right? If someone's hungry, that's a problem, then your food product could be a solution to their hunger, right? If someone, wants to look good when they go out on a Friday night and they don't want to get cold, then your clothing company could be a solution to their problem, right? So the way to think about finances is it's really a scorecard or assessment at how efficiently you are solving a customer's problem. The more efficiently, in other words, the more cost effectively you can solve that problem, and the more of those customers that you have, the better off your financial statements are likely to be. And once you start to understand the different layers or elements of your financial statements, you can use them as an incredibly powerful tool to basically troubleshoot your business, right? So if you're not getting the financial outcomes that you want out of your business, and this could be that you're not paying yourself enough, maybe you're not paying yourself consistently, or maybe you're, working really hard and generating all this revenue, but for some reason, there's no money left in the bank account at the end of each month. Like, they're all financial problems, right? They're all telling us that something about this business is not really working the way it should. What you can do with your financial statements is kind of dig in and figure out why. Like, which part of this whole system and enterprise is not working, the way it should. And we can talk a little bit more about some of the methods we would use to do that if you wish, Renee. But, it's a diagnostic tool. It helps you understand what's working, what's not, and can help you really focus your time, effort, attention, your team, your resources on the problems that need to be fixed within the business.
Right. I would love to dive into that a little bit more, just because I know I can't be the only one who looks at the financial statements and
Mhm.
says, okay, I think we're okay. you know, and there's, when a lot of us go into business, it's not because we're financial experts. It's because we have some sort of a service to offer or some kind of product to share that would benefit our consumers or our clients.
Sure, yeah.
We don't always have all the numbers acumen of
Mhm.
knowing whether or not we're in good shape. So
Mhm.
yes, I would love to go dive a little bit deeper. So if you are bringing in, you're generating revenue, money's coming in, you're paying all your bills, but you still feel broke.
Mhm.
What is that all about?
Yeah, that's a big question. We could talk for a long time about that, and I know this is only a 30-minute show, but let me have a quick pass at it. So within the world of financial statements, it's first of all important to understand what each of the statements about, right? You've probably heard of a profit and loss, or P&L, a cash flow statement, and a balance sheet.
Yeah.
A profit and loss is really your performance scorecard, right? It's the thing that tracks whether or not we're getting better over time. So me as a coach or advisor or mentor, and you as a performance athlete, i.e., the business owner operator, my job is to help you get better over time. And the tool that we're going to use to track that is the profit and loss. Okay. The next is the cash flow statement. And the cash flow statement really tells us about the cash, or cash equivalent resources coming into and out of your business in any period. Cash is kind of the oxygen, it's the blood, it's the things that pumps through the veins of our business. And unfortunately, without it, or if we're deprived of that oxygen for too long a period of time, we're going to wither and die, right? Without cash, you can't pay your employees, you can't buy ads, you can't buy inventory, and things grind to a halt pretty damn quickly if you run out of cash. Now, it is possible to have a business that's profitable but negative cash flow. Equally, you can also have a business that's not profitable but have positive cash flow. So the two are, somewhat related, but they don't always, move in the same direction. And one of the big reasons for that, particularly in the context of the clients and the businesses that I work with, is around inventory and inventory investment. So all of my clients, for example, they're all dealing with physical products, they're e-commerce and consumer products businesses. And so when they have to outlay a lot of money for things like inventory, that can be a big cash outflow or outlay. But, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're unprofitable. So, the two statements can disconnect for a while. But if we wanted to kind of deep dive into a business where we had this chronic lack of profitability, right? Like we're working hard, chipping away, we're generating the revenue, as you said, Renee, but, we're not generating the profit at the end of the day. There's kind of a process we go through to look at the main categories of costs in a business. So the first would be the direct costs, which for businesses like the ones I deal with, the cost of goods sold, what is the cost of the shoe or the widget or, the phone or whatever it is that we're producing. Then we would look at the indirect costs, which is all your overhead type expenses. So that's, admin, staff, labor, rent, legal and accounting, all that sort of thing. Then you've got your marketing or customer acquisition costs. What is it costing you to kind of bring people into the business? There's a few others, but they're really the most important ones. And a big part of what I do is help founders understand which of these cost categories they might have a problem in, right? And we do that through an exercise called benchmarking. So we'll look at your costs compared to a number of other businesses like it, and try to understand where you are an outlier or where you might be an anomaly, where your costs could be significantly higher or lower than your peers. And that's usually a pretty good place to start poking around and looking. If everyone else in your industry is spending, say, 10% of their revenue on marketing, but your business is spending 30% of your revenue on marketing, then I'm going to, say that maybe we have some sort of marketing efficiency problem and we need to look, dig in, look at the activities going on within that marketing function and then try to figure out what might need to be fixed.
Right. That makes perfect sense, especially given that example. If you're spending 30% on marketing, everyone else is spending 10, but you're still feeling broke and not seeing the dividends on, come in from that expense, then yeah. Might be time to shift marketing companies or look at that expense in some way. So that is really great. So thank you so much for breaking that down for us and making it make sense. Because now, when you look at it like a scorecard and you're looking at the P&Ls, you're looking at the balance sheet, you're looking at the cash flow statements, they all work in tandem to give you the overall picture of the health of your company, of your business.
That's correct. Yeah.
So having someone, like you to be able to see those things is very beneficial and super helpful to those that, may not be their thing. It's very necessary. And this would be working with someone like you or your company to help them in this way would be an expense worth investing in, because of the benefit that you can bring, because you can now, it's like having a curtain lifted from your eyes. It's like there's some kind of veil that is being, opened, and now you can see. And once you are able to see where the problem is, you can start to then, like you said, chip away at it.
Yeah. So a lot of the folks I work with, report very similar things. I actually just posted a testimonial video recently from one of my clients I've been working with for about a year now. And in the video, he was explaining how, the process of getting more familiar with his finances and, us working together has just helped him sleep better at night, right? There's less stress and anxiety about what's going on. So, the first step is just about clarity, understanding us, right? Less stress, less anxiety. But probably the most impact that a business owner is going to get from understanding their finances is not so much in the present, but it's really in the future. And it's really about being more strategic and thoughtful about how you actually grow the business in the future. I gather, are, have contact with a lot of business owners. And so I'm sure you're familiar with the dilemma that many of us face of, a million different priorities, right? You ask any small business owner, they'll usually tell you that they've got dozens and dozens, if not hundreds of things on their priority list.
Mm-hmm.
Finance and financial analysis can be an incredibly powerful tool in helping business owners figure out which of those priorities they should actually pursue, because each of those projects and priorities represents a different earnings profitability opportunity, right? Some might grow your earnings by $100. There could be others that grow your earnings by $100,000 or $1 million, right? And they're all going to have different risk profiles as well. So we can use this tool called Finance to help evaluate all of these priorities and ideas. And a huge part of what I do and help my clients with is, usually when we start working together, they'll tell me they have, 20 or 30 different things that they're trying to do. It could be TikTok shop, or a new product or a new sales channel, whatever. And I spend a lot of time with them trying to get that down to a list of 2 or 3. And what I want to help them do is figure out, like, what is the 90% of stuff that's just noise, and frankly, we can probably afford to ignore. But what are the 2 or 3 really, really high impact growth levers that we need to pursue if we want to achieve that business owner's goals?
Right. Wow. So good. So the knowing where you are financially helps you prioritize those things that are priorities. I'm putting that in air quotes.
Yes. Very important air quotes there.
Right? Because some of them have different financial impacts. Like you said, some you can get an immediate return for low investment. Some you might get a larger return, but of course it might cost you a bit more. It might take a little bit longer. So all of those things are so important as you're analyzing the numbers for your business and trying to determine what things you need to focus on and what things can maybe wait till next quarter, next year, whatever, or just come off the list.
Yeah.
Right.
You got it.
So has there been a situation where you worked with a client and there was some defining moment where you saw the impact of what you were doing in helping founders understand their numbers?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know that there's really been any one, but let me take a step back here. So most founders, including many of the folks that I work with, go through 3 or 4 typical stages when it comes to their relationship with finances, right? So the first I call denial. And people in the denial phase are like, don't want to know about it. No, thank you. This finance stuff is not for me. Like, get it out of here. It makes me feel ill. And these people will just, refuse to interact with their financial statements. There's a lot of reasons for that, which we could go on talking about for hours. But the problem with that approach is that the financial statements and the financial scorecard that's being written for your business is happening in the background, whether or not you choose to interact with it and look at it, right? That scorecard is being written every month, every week, every day. The next phase that I see people get to is what I call overwhelm. And at the overwhelm phase, they've made some attempt to explore these financial statements and get their head around what's going on. But it was, too much, too confusing, too much jargon, mumbo jumbo terms we don't understand. And so we retreat. These people often go back to step 1. Step 3 is what I call the intrigue phase. Wait, did I say that already? Anyway, the third stage is where we get a little bit more curious about the numbers. And we kind of start to look over the fence and we're going, there's some interesting stuff over there. Like, I don't fully understand it all yet, but there's probably some things that I could learn by, looking at all these numbers. Yeah. But the final step, Renee, and where I work on getting to with all of my clients is the enlightenment phase. And at the enlightenment phase, that's when the penny drops, right? That's where we go, oh, now I get it, right? Now I can see these patterns. Now I understand what these numbers are trying to tell me about the efficiency of my business. Now I understand why I shouldn't be selling on Amazon.com anymore, because I'm not making any money there. Now I understand why I can or can't afford to hire this person that I wanted to hire to help me. And, once you get to that enlightenment phase, you can really start to see and appreciate these financial statements as your strategic ally. They help make decision-making easier and clearer and more confident. And, that's the transition that I essentially help all of my clients with. I've got, a bunch of testimonials on the website if anyone would care to check it out. But yeah, that's essentially what I do.
Awesome. Oh, that is so great. And as you're talking and you're going through all these different phases of finance, the first one being denial, and then overwhelm, and then intrigue, like you kind of want to know, and then enlightenment. I love those phases because I can relate.
Okay. Where would you say you're at with your finances? Which phase are you at?
I would say that I'm at the intrigue stage.
Okay.
So, and I want to know better how to be a better steward of the resources that I have. And so as I was listening to you though, it made me think about maybe some founders who might need a money mindset shift. Have you ever worked with someone who thought about money in such a way that it was detrimental to their growth?
To be honest, not really. Not because I'm certain those people exist, but there's a selection bias in terms of the people who come looking for someone like me, right? If you're that sort of mindset, then you're probably not going to go to the effort of hunting down a numbers guy or a finance guy like me. So yeah, I mean, I wish I could offer some better insights and, help people like that. But the reality is that I just don't cross paths with a lot of people. I would, in my world, I generally categorize founders into one of three categories. First of all, you have your creator designer type, right? These people love product, they love designing, they're often the subject matter expert behind their business, and they have a tendency to over-index or over-focus on products and widgets. So if you look at these businesses, often on a total revenue per SKU basis, they often don't look that great. These founders are very prone to thinking that the answer to growing their business and generating more revenue is to have more products. But the truth is that rarely solves the problem. These people, I have maybe one client who fits in that category, but they're often not that interested in engaging with their finances. And so, they, like I said, they tend not to come looking for people like me too much. In the e-commerce space, there's another big category of founders who I would call the media buying or digital advertising experts. They understand Google ads, they understand Meta ads. And as long as they understand the financial math around customer acquisition and lifetime gross profit, and they know that they can acquire customers efficiently and profitably, they're often quite happy just, focusing on their marketing efforts and continuing to grow their business through, media buying. And often the type of decisions that they have to make are pretty simple, right? They know where their next dollar of income is going to come from. It's going to come from selling product to a customer. And they know what they're going to do with that money when they receive it, which is buy more ads and more inventory. And so their business and business models are often, pretty straightforward. The third category of founder, and this is the category that I would put most of my customers in personally, is what I call the business owner. They're not usually, excelling in any one discipline. They kind of dabble across all aspects of the business. But what's a little bit different about them compared to the other two profiles is that they're, wanting to think in return on investment terms. They're a little bit more, rational when it comes to math and finance-based arguments. And, if you can present a case to them, it's like, hey, I think you should do this because it will generate that return. And you've got all of these options in front of you. And, I can help you figure out which one is the best. I personally find them the easiest people to work with as a, fractional CFO service provider, I guess.
Right. Got you. And speaking of fractional CFO service provider, tell us a little bit more about that and how that's different from the traditional model of CFO.
Yeah, so a CFO or chief financial officer is kind of your, finance and numbers guy. I put the word fractional in front of that because none of the business or business owners that I work with need a full version of me, right? They're all smaller businesses. My clients are typically teams of like 4 to 10 people, and they just don't need someone like me full time. So I give, a few hours a week to a bunch of different business owners or brands and help them on a part-time basis, if you will. Where my personal approach is a little bit different to other fractional CFOs is that I come from an owner operator background, right? I'm much less of a hardcore finance number guys than I think some of my peers. And I spend a lot more time with founders, not just helping them identify the problems in their business, but actually fixing them, right? Because all of my clients have got incomplete organizational charts. None of them have got their marketing team built out. None of them have got their operations team built out. They're all figuring out which technology and tools and platforms they should be using. And I really enjoy that type of work because it's, there's a lot of variety, it's multidisciplinary, and I get to have my finger in a lot of interesting projects.
Wow. Well, and that's so great. And when you have that broad of a frame of reference, because of working with so many different types of companies and different industries and different models, it makes you that much more valuable to the next client because now you're adding to your frame of reference resource of now to pull on to be able to help somebody else, who may be either in a similar industry or field or a brand new space. So,
I hope so. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so one of the things I read that you are very passionate about is making finance education more accessible. So why is that so important to you?
Good question. Two main reasons. Number one, I, as a former entrepreneur and founder myself, I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for founders and entrepreneurs. I know how freaking hard the job is because I've done it myself. My perception of entrepreneurs and founders is that they are the people in society who are bold enough to not only acknowledge that something about the status quo isn't working, but they're also the people who are brave enough to step out, take a risk, and have a go at fixing it, right? These are the people in our society who are trying to make better versions of everything, every product and service that we have access to, for the benefit of all of us in the future, right? Like entrepreneurs are the ones who are making better technology, better phones, better houses, better computers, better software. Like they're the ones who are innovating and kind of taking us forward. So I, as a group of people, I just have a lot of admiration and respect for them. In terms of the finance piece, that is particularly important to me because I recognize that a lack of finance knowledge and education is frankly the number one reason that these businesses fail, right? Businesses fail because they run out of money or don't understand their finances. So by me doing what I'm doing, if I can help those businesses and make them less likely to fail through my products and services, then I feel like I'm contributing to the ongoing success of the world of entrepreneurs, and that's a personally very rewarding thing to be able to do.
Yes, absolutely. And so to that end, you've created so much content and courses and coaching that's available. So how do you use all of that to empower founders to avoid those pitfalls?
Yeah, so most of my peers really only work with people on a one-to-one basis. And the reality of that, service delivery model is it's quite expensive, right? One-to-one engagements start at, usually a few $1,000s a month, which means that you need to be relatively, you can't be a brand new business to afford that as an expense, right? You need to have made some amount of progress.
Right.
What I am set on doing is basically making financial education a lot more accessible and a lot more affordable, partly because I see there's a gigantic need with these earlier stage people, partly also because frankly, I don't think there's much competition in that part of the market because most of my peers are focused, on much larger companies. So some of the things I'm doing in addition to the one-on-one stuff is I run some group format programs, which are, because it's one to few or one to many, it's like a lot more affordable for me to be able to provide the support that way. I have some online content, short courses and that sort of stuff. And, there's loads of other templates. I have spreadsheets. If you want to get a free download for a cash flow model, for example, I have that sort of thing on my YouTube channel and website. So yeah, there you go. Thank you for pulling it up. So yeah, I'm all about making this more accessible to people, and I'm trying to improve the business model for a fractional CFO business to make it easier for earlier and earlier stage founders to get the support and information that they need.
Wow. Well, that is so good. Thank you so much for all you're doing to help educate us, making sure that we have the tools and resources that we need to avoid common pitfalls and, get unstuck if we currently are. But if people need a little bit more help, then how do they reach you and stay in touch and connect with you?
Sure. Appreciate the question. Two main ways. You could go to the website, which is futurereadycfo.com. It looks like you got it up on screen there. In terms of social platforms, the place where I'm most active is LinkedIn. My name again is Nate Littlewood. Should be pretty easy to find there. But yeah, they're the best two places to get hold of me.
Excellent. And these are great looking sites. I love the calming colors of the theme, the green and the yellow, very peaceful, very calming. So you're dealing with the issues of finances, then it's nice to have a calming screen to look at with the tones.
I'm glad to hear it.
So I know that we are at time today, Nate. If you have one final closing thought for our audience, if they don't remember a single thing today, what do you want them to take away from today's?
I would say, listen, it's okay to be overwhelmed by this stuff, and it's okay to be scared and confused by finances, but, there is a rainbow on the other side. Like, there are benefits to getting to the, enlightenment phase here. When you get there, you will appreciate that this information and this perspective is going to make your life easier. It's completely okay to ask for some help, but please put your hand up, go and get an advisor, mentor, ask a friend, ask another business owner, do whatever you need to do. But understanding your finances and how your business creates that financial scorecard is going to be one of the most enlightening things that you can ever do as a business owner.
Wow, so good. Thank you so much, Nate. You were made for something great. So go and be awesome.